Hello class, I'm going to make a quick video on solving radical equations. And the big difference is that we know this is a radical equation because there is an equal sign. If there is no equal sign, then it's an expression and we are just simplifying. But after this quiz today, now we're going to actually start solving. And if we're solving, then we're actually looking for a value of x. And the nice part about solving is if you get that value, then you should be able to plug it back in and always check your work. So then you know if you're doing it right or wrong. So right now, if you were looking at these, I hope you realize that we want to get x by itself. So in order to do that, we have to get rid of a square root. Well, we have just been practicing that the square root is really the opposite of squared. So if I want to get rid of a square root, I can square it, and then therefore 2x minus 1 would come out of the radical. But whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other, and please try to concentrate that 3 squared is not 6, 3 squared is 9. At this point, you have a regular equation, so we will just solve 10 and x equals 5. Getting an answer allows you to go back and plug it in. So if I went back and plugged it in, 2 times 5 is 10, 10 minus 1, square root of 9, does that equal 3? Check. So you can always check your answers, and we definitely want to check if we have squares or anything, if we end up with negative answers at any point. Because you should be advised you can never take the square root of a negative number. So if this came out to be negative 9, this would be no solution. So when we look at this one, the only thing is now there's a 3 right here. It's not a squared anymore. So I can't just bracket this and square it because that's not going to get rid of it. But all I need to do is cube it because it'll get rid of it on both sides. So if I cube it, I get x plus 4. But now what do I need to do? I need to cube this side. That's not 12. That's 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64. I subtract, and x is 60. Again, I could put it back in, 60 plus 4, so it's the cube root of 64. Is that equal to 4? And the answer is yes. And I'll show you later how to make sure you can find a cube root in a calculator to check yourself. Okay, let's look at these two examples. If you briefly just look at these, you'll see you have a square root here, but you have a cube root here again. The only difference with these problems is there's other stuff on the same side of the equation as the square root. So our first step is to get the variable x all by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 2 to get rid of it. So now I have 2, the square root of x equals 6. And here's where you have options. This is attached to the square root. So you do have the option of squaring everything, but students tend to make a mistake and they'll forget to square the 2. So my advice is get rid of everything you can and just have the radical by itself, so the square root of x. At this point, I then square it, and x equals 9. Again, I can go back up here and say 2 plus 2 times the square root of 9. Does that give me 8? Sorry. 9. Does that give me 8? Well, that's 2 plus 3 times 2 is 6, and 8, so check. So you always want to give yourself a check so you know your answers, right? When I come here, here is my variable x. Here's my cube root in this instance. So I want to get rid of everything else. Obviously, this is attached, so my first move is to get rid of what's not attached. So I'm going to get this. I'm going to get 6. Next move, I'm going to get rid of this, so I'm going to divide that out because it's not under the radical or the cube root. So I get that. And then lastly, all I want to do is cube this. And I get x is 27. Again, I can go back. The cube root of 27 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. So hold on. Obviously, I have a mistake, and that would be right here. Sorry, that's a plus 1. This would be a 4. Hopefully, somebody picked that up. This is going to be a 2. and this will be an 8. So that's perfect that I made that mistake, because then I knew to check myself. So the cube root of 8 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 minus 1 is 3. So now it checks out. Good. Not 0.88. Okay, I don't know why I can't. Okay. All right, this is the last problem we're going to do, and we're going to stop here. So what I'm going to do is find my variables. My variables are right here, and everything is under the cube root. So my first move is going to be do this to get rid of the entire radical in the problem, but whatever I do there, I do here. So I do get x squared, I get plus 2x, and I get 2 cubed, which is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And then at this point, this should bring back a memory that this is an x squared and an x, so I can't solve this using just linear algebra. Basically, I can't just start solving for x. I need to set this up as a quadratic, so I need to move the 8 over and set it equal to 0. At this point, you can use the quadratic formula if you're a fan of that. You can also just realize this is a 1 here, so I can simply try 2 factors of 8 that get me 4. So that would be 8 and 1 and 4 and 2. So that's going to get me a 2. I need to be plus 4 and minus 2 equals 0. So I get x plus 4 equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0. I will get negative 4 and I will get 2. At this point, I have 2 solutions. You definitely want to go back to your original. And so if I take the cube root of negative 4 squared plus negative 8, because negative 4 times 2, does that equal 2? Well, that's going to give me the cube root of 16 minus 8, which is the cube root of 8. So that does check. And then the last one is putting in a 2, which is going to give me the 4 plus 4. So the cube root of 8 is 2. So both check. Both happen to be solutions in this problem. So that's where we'll stop. It's just a brief introduction. We'll cover the rest of the note sheet together. Thank you.